Hi, Joe Houghton here, going live for the first time in my Plymouth office, the Minnesota Property Group headquarters. I just wanted to take a quick 3 minutes to talk about closing costs. It's a topic that comes up all the time. I get asked by home buyers and sellers, Joe, who pays the closing costs on a real estate transaction here in the Twin Cities? And the answer is it depends. Let me just break down some of the jargon around closing costs. If the buyer's writing an offer for $500,000 and they're going to pay their own closing costs and prepaids, that offer looks like $500,000 to the seller. Now, if the buyer says, here's our offer for $500,000, but we want you to pay $10,000 of our closing costs, that offer looks like $490,000 to the seller. So whether the buyer offers $500,000 and asks for the sellers to pay $10,000 of closing costs, or offers $490,000 and doesn't ask the seller to pay any of their closing costs, it is essentially the same thing. So their offer is for $490,000 as seen by the seller. Now let's break that down a little bit more. Buyers have their own closing costs in real estate transactions here in Minnesota, and sellers have their own closing costs. Sellers typically, as of now anyways, 2022, the sellers are paying the real estate commissions to the listing agent's brokerage. Now, the listing agent is almost always cooperating in Northstar MLS or our regional MLS system and agreeing to pay out the buyer's broker X amount of money, usually a percentage, often 2.7% of the purchase price, towards to the buyer's broker for their commission. So the seller's essentially paying all of the real estate commissions. Now, different ways to do that, different legalities around it, but let's keep it simple. The buyers have their own closing costs, and sometimes they ask the sellers to pay them. Now, closing costs can be just referred to the mortgage fees and the title fees, or just the mortgage fees, as some mortgage bankers or brokers discuss them to sound like their fees are lower. But as a real estate agent, we are typically referring to closing costs as all of the fees that a buyer is going to pay at closing or have the seller pay, also known as rolling them into the mortgage or rolling them into the purchase price, inflating the purchase price to cover your buyer fees. Fees going in, fees going out. Important to understand that. We'll discuss it more length in other videos and live streams. But I just wanted to address this issue because it comes up all the time. What's the difference between buyer and seller closing costs? Do sellers pay closing costs? Do they pay all the closing costs? What are prepaid items? So prepaid items are typically on the buy side. When a buyer is writing an offer, they go to their mortgage banker, get a pre-approval letter. The pre-approval letter is also accompanied by a buyer worksheet, or lenders call it different things, but it's important that the lender explains to the buyer all the fees involved in that mortgage transaction when they're pre-approving them. Important that they discuss prepaid items such as real estate taxes. They make you stay ahead on your real estate property taxes. They make you stay ahead or prepay your homeowner's insurance or property casualty insurance. Those are two big items that can add up to a percent of the purchase price. Then you've got your mortgage fees and your title fees and real estate fee if your real estate brokerage is charging something above and beyond what they're getting paid by the listing agent or the seller. So I know I said this would be brief, but I want to be thorough. Two different ways to say sellers are paying my closing costs. A few different ways. Rolling them into the mortgage, same thing as having the seller pay your closing costs. Inflating the purchase price to have the seller pay your closing costs. All the same thing. Call me, text me, email me, or reach out through social media. I like to explain this topic. I often have to explain this topic to my home buyers and sellers several times before it really clicks. There's a lot of different information out there. I'm trying to break it down as simply and as possible. Thanks a lot. I'm going to sign off. First live stream on YouTube. You'll be seeing more of me. Take care.